Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Spaced Out Radio Tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for being here as we appreciate you tuning us on in all around the world. We want to say that our guest tonight, Rebecca Rose, is going to get deep into the secret space program, and we are going to have a great night with her tonight. So let's get to it. We got Race Fan in the gold medal position. Vincent Johnson with a silver, Kitty Caddywhack with a bronze medal tonight. David Norenberg, how are you doing? Robert Odell, welcome to SOR Chat. Necessary Dialogue, Robert Lamoth and Luda Lindahl, welcome to SOR Chat. The Attorney at Large, Michael Morris, thank you for joining us as we continue on with our roll call here. Old World Everywhere, welcome to SOR Chat. Ethanol is here. Ethanol will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because when you're talking secret space program, you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any rigidness. Thank you, Mel, for lubing us up tonight. Road Flare, how are you? Les Paul Holland, what's going on? Eternity Eternal, Rock and Rory, JMJ12, and Operation Shutdown. Nice to have you all here. Sweetly Morbid Bear has returned. So is Cosmic Joe. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Hi, Little Cam over on YouTube. Literally did 800 pounds worth of leg presses 88 times tonight just to warm up for tonight's show. It's going to be a good one. Amanda, how are you? Thank you for coming on in. T-Bone, my man. Kurt W, Flat 6, and Noble Patrick. Good to have you all here tonight. Lenda, thank you for joining us. J True Seeker, good to see you. And who else is next on our list? Scrolling on down, up next is, well, thank you, Kitty Caddywhack, for kicking off the super chat tonight. We really appreciate your love and support of SOR. So thank you. And, hold on, let Dave write that down. Kitty. There we go. Wolverine is back. Wolverine will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Area 53, how are you doing? Good to see you. Paul Demon, thanks for coming on in. Walter Kochabinski, good to have you here. Hello there, Ozzy Ange. I'm Hardcore over on X. Nice to see you. Pam Harris, thank you for joining us. Good morning, Ian McFadden in the UK this morning. Michael Gutierrez, nice to see you, my friend. The lovely and talented Deanna Ann, thank you for joining us tonight. John Jackson, Al Garay over on Twitch, 1,400 sit-ups in 2 minutes. Guy was moving like a robot. Yeah. Steve Garza, good to see you. Thank you for joining us as we continue on with our roll call here. People still coming in. Want to remind everybody the Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much to Kitty Caddywhack for kicking things off tonight. Cielo Azul, how are you tonight? Good to see you. All right. don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. The secrets of the secret space program. Rebecca Rose is going to join us here momentarily to get right into this as we are in roll call right now on YouTube. We're pretty much caught up. Magneticus, how are you doing? For us up here in Canada, we have a long weekend, Victoria Day long weekend. So it's going to be absolutely fun as we prepare for the forest tomorrow night. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm pumped up about it. I am totally pumped. 1 second here. There we go. All right. Oh, moving on over here. Ms. Mary, how are you? Good to see you. And I think we're caught up. We are totally caught up. I did the store thing. I did the super chat thing. Now we kind of have to do the radio thing. But first, throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair at SOR headquarters, right here in the beautiful Caribou region of British Columbia. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out the Bumblebee, read the news wire, check out our Spike as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We're going to have an amazing show with you tonight. Rebecca Rose is here. We're going to get deep into one of the most controversial programs that is out there, the secret space program. One of my favorite topics. We're going to get deep into this tonight. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off. Then Lee Strauss, the extra small one, will be here for the Q&A. So let's get right to it. Let's have some fun tonight. Why not? Rebecca Rose is a multidimensional galactic experiencer, currently serving the collective with her work as a quantum energy intuitive, heart seer, and galactic channel. As a lifelong contactee, she was originally targeted for desirable psychic attributes. She was abducted into a multitude of dark programs from her earliest years, a path that was facilitated by family members working within the top secret domain of the deep state. She was taken by the Draco and Germans to the moon, where she worked in a genetics lab that was connected to Dulce and the alien Greys. Later, she was part of the Montauk project, being handled by military agencies with an interest in the exploitation of human consciousness and the warping of time to control future probabilities. Oh, this just sounds amazing. You know what? I could go another 4 or 5 minutes about how awesome tonight is going to be, but I think we need to hear from Rebecca. Rebecca Rose, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
Hey, it's good to be with you, Dave. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. I'm an experiencer as well, but I've never experienced what you've experienced. The darker side of this, the milabs, the control, I never got to go to the moon. I know I've been taken. I got recall on about 9 different occasions, but you have seen the dark side of all of this. When is your first recollection of all this happening?
Yeah. Well, it began, the abductions for me started when I was 4. I didn't have recollection full recall, and I still don't. Maybe will never have full recall of everything that happened to me in the programs. But the first abduction, if that's what you're talking about, started when I was pretty young. Yeah.
What happened there to you? Could you take us back?
Yeah. So I was taken by the Draco into the moon, back and forth from the time I was 4 for several years, back and forth. And I was working with the Germans and Draco and the Greys, as you mentioned there in that bit of my bio, in a genetics lab. So, and this is taking people back into I was born in 72. So we're talking about the 1970s. This is last century kind of stuff. And I was trained to psychically or telepathically connect with beings who are being hybridized and cloned, and genetic experiments in the programs that they had going on in the backside of the moon at the Nachtwaffen, the Dark Fleet base, the German base there. And being trained and groomed and handled in a way that would end up, putting me into a longer 20 and back later on when I was 9. So there's a lot of precision in the way that this was chronologically laid out, I think, in my timeline.
Man, that's a lot for a child to take in. Did
It's
your
so
parents
much.
know that? Did your
Yeah.
parents know that was happening?
My father, I feel, because he worked in the top secret classified world with military intelligence and the CIA and these things, and NASA, I believe he, on some level, knew what was happening to me and also my brother. But I don't know. It's funny. It's like we can know things without knowing them, if that even makes sense. We can be conscious on our front personality of some things, but in our subconscious, we also know things. So, we have parts that don't necessarily communicate with each other. And I think I don't think my mother knew about these things, but I think on some level, my father absolutely did. Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry. Did I hear you when you said this was happening to your brother at the exact same time?
I don't know the exact date that he was first taken. He's not necessarily conversant on the topic, but I can put 2 and 2 together. And what he shared about his abduction experiences very much makes me believe. And why wouldn't he be vetted? He had the same psychic ability that came down through us, through our father. Why wouldn't he? We were earmarked for them programs from the time we were born.
Okay, explain that for our radio audience who may not understand being earmarked from the time you were born for some sort of warped project.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a couple things going on there. And part of it, we could get into the journey of the soul. I don't feel at this point on my path that I'm necessarily just a hapless victim to all these things. I think it was part of my soul's code to come in, experience the dark belly of the beast, and become part of its solution by speaking out about these programs and what's being done to children and adults over time. I think the public needs to know about these things and what has gone on, and I think there's a lot going on to move forward that kind of disclosure. The other piece of it is, that I've spoken to the soul's kind of journey with this, but also the earmarking of children. Sometimes they come in, like I have a bloodline family, a German bloodline family with dark stuff going on it on my mother's side of the family, which, there's certain things that come into, a whole constellation of meaning that then sets the child on a certain path from even before coming into conception. So that's my understanding of it, in a very multidimensional quantum way.
The first time I ever heard about something like this happening was years ago when I interviewed Laura Eisenhower, the great granddaughter
Yeah.
of President Eisenhower, and
Yeah.
she stated that they were or have been recruiting children from high profile political families, from military families, from kids who show a very, very bright future. Maybe they're part of Mensa or something along those lines right off the bat, in order to get those smarts already inundated with government programs. I mean, that seems to the rest of us so far-fetched and so unbelievable.
Yeah.
And yet here you are saying this happened to you.
Yeah, and and it is. I don't know actually how much you've spoken to SSP kind of survivors on your show. Your audience knows something about this, but it can be quite. It can cause a lot of cognitive dissonance to number one for me as a survivor of the SSP to come into my memories in a much more complete way than I've ever had, and also for people to hear about it. People who think of maybe our government has our best interests at stake and these things. So it can be quite a learning curve or it will test one's open-mindedness. So I appreciate your audience for being here listening to this tonight. Yeah.
I think we need to also put a division. Is it the government or the shadow government, the hidden government, the real controllers of what's going on?
Well, I don't know. My personal opinion on that would be, is there something beside a shadow government? Um, yeah, there's a lot that could be said. I don't know that we're going to get too political on the show tonight, but yeah.
It is something that is, worth stirring the pot over. That is for sure. So, when you started being taken, were you like Andrew Bashago, where you were taken with other children?
Yes, yes. In some parts of my experience, as in at Montauk, and also when I was taken out to Mars when I was 9, almost 10 at that point for the 20 and back. Yes, I was with other children, and I don't recall in those earliest experiences on the moon other children. I was mostly interfacing with extraterrestrials and somewhat with the Germans in the labs. Yeah.
So, when you saw other children that were around you, did you get to converse with them, or were you able to talk and share stories or share where you were from?
Not so much. It's not like go out to recess and have fun and play. It's more like we are all being heavily traumatized. And through that, all the kids are pretty dissociated, and there's a lot of pain in amongst us. So it's not an ordinary sort of child's gathering, to be clear about that. So I don't remember having ordinary conversation with really any of the children beside the little boy I was twinned with before I was sent to Mars. This was at a Great Lakes Naval Station north of Chicago in 1982. So
You mentioned trauma as something that you had to go through, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. Am I allowed to ask you what kind of trauma for our audience to understand what was happening to you during these abductions?
yeah, I mean, there's a variety of things, and the child is being groomed and handled in a certain way to fracture the mind so that they can perform certain tasks without remembering, and to have different aspects of them doing different things at different times, and to cause a great amount of amnesia, so that there will be a vast forgetting once the kid has come back from the abduction, placed back home, back in the body, or whatever method was being used for the abduction. There's a lot of methods to the madness, but trauma-based mind control is a thing, and it has been for a very long time. And that's what is used on the children. And some of it's highly, deviant sexual abuse, or I would be put in a cage, as when I was bonded with my psychic twin, the other little boy that I mentioned, kept in isolation, kept without food or water or clothing in cold environments for a long time. So it's just breaking the mind. You could go on and on with a sordid array, a laundry list of what was done, but I think you get the picture there. It's fracturing the mind of the child.
When you were you taken for days at a time? Was it hours, or what is it?
That's a great question, and it brings in the question of what is time. Time ceases to exist the farther we go off of Earth's orbit. Linear time is not existent in the way we know it on other planets. They might have their own system of time, but it's not the one we reckon here. Linear time gets pretty swimmy during an abduction experience. So I would leave for the moon, and I would go into this, I would be taken out the wall of the house, so to say, or up through the roof of the house, same as my brother. And I was deposited into a underground base, which just felt like a bus station. It was like a substation. And then strapped into a craft that I think might have had I don't know if it was a warp drive propulsion system or what. It was like those, how do you call the roll? If you're going on a roller coaster and you're strapped in because you're going to go upside down, it had kind of those shoulder straps like that. And we'd move off from there to this is speaking to the moon experiences. And my point, and getting to your question here, was like, it could have been days or hours or minutes, but I was always back in my bed for the next morning. I was always there, sort of like going to my night job and coming back. So, some abductions are quite short and some are very long, but at the end of the day, it can feel like a blink of an eye or a million years. And it's really, really hard to tell the difference. Yeah, because in a way, time stops.
For people who may not understand, what is the 20 and Back program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's those of us who were taken in a I call it a time and back experience, but usually they ended up being conscripted for 20 years. This we find in testimony after testimony after testimony after testimony. When I was taken to Mars at age 9, like I said, I remember aging up to the point where I was in my late 20s, maybe early 30s, indicating that was about the length of time, a 20-year program. I've heard different reasons why that is the case, why they take people for that amount of time. But that seems to be the standard that we find in testimony across, many different whistleblowers. Yeah.
Okay, so as you were taken, where did you get taken to? Was it just on craft? Did you go to the moon? Did you go to Mars? Did you go to other planets?
All the above. Yeah. Well, I mentioned that my earliest abductions were training me on the moon with the Draco telepathically, and later on I'd be taken to Mars and trained as a super what's commonly called a super soldier, telekinetically operating craft and learning to be a pilot and a soldier and in some ways a killer. That was part of the training.
Okay, so with your training that you got, what were they training you into? Were they training you to prepare to go to space? Were they training
A lot of
to...
it was, some of what we were trained for is just being assets as a base patrol. The Mars bases, we were would be in units where we were keeping those bases, quote unquote, safe from the locals. There was indigenous spiders, reptilians, mantis beings, and so on. And some of the work was kind of boring as they were building us out over time with technology, chemically altering us, technologically altering us, biologically altering us, and also psychically altering us, and so forth. So we were trained and like I said, built into assets that took a lot of time and money to create, not entirely human, and yet not unhuman at the same time. I always say I was in the cesspool of the programs because I felt like it was so experimental at that time, back in the 70s, early 80s. And I was eventually cloned and sold off to Draco reptilians, where I then worked in the Kuiper Belt and was protecting their assets. So they will build out a being such as myself, and then they can trade it in the galactic slave trade. You don't want to trade it to your enemy per se, but they can make money on it in the slave trade, and such was the case with me. And money being any kind of currency. A lot of times it's technology, or as we know, DNA being one of the highest prized commodities throughout our galaxy.
How stressful was it?
Incredibly stressful. Yeah, but I would also say, and I've done, for people who are wondering how can she sit there talking about that, I have been through years of healing and self-recovery and had lots of help with my well-being over time, to get to this point where my life is stable and steady again. So I mean, some people, I see clients in my practice, I work as a full-time channel and healer and so on, and a reader, psychic reader, that are doing very poorly and are horribly messed up from what's happened in these programs. And there's a lot of abuse that people don't recover from. And sometimes there's suicide programming. Sometimes people take their lives. And I went through that myself in my late teens and early 20s. I went through a long period of not wanting to be here, and I was hospitalized as a result of that, because suicide programming is strong, and there's a lot of deviance that goes on. So it's difficult to recover from. That's a kind of a long answer to your question, but the depth and detail are probably needed. Yeah.
We have about 4 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Rebecca Rose is our guest tonight. What's it like being abducted? I mean, you've gone through this. You've been taken by the good, the bad. You've seen the ugly. Has it stopped for you, or are you still being taken?
No, it has stopped for me. I can happily say that. And I still have a lot of relationship with what I would call starseed family, light family, higher level beings, upper dimensional, benevolent, and loving beings who are important to me. But the nefarious, I can happily say that, yes.
Are you comfortable with your past? Have you made peace with it?
Yeah, I think that's a lifelong journey for all of us. Yeah, yeah. And I have a much bigger perspective from the journey of the soul that I mentioned in this first half hour segment that brings a lot of peace because I know it's part of my deeper mission to experience these things. Yeah.
As you move forward with your life, you've become an advocate for bringing this subject to the public. There's a lot of people when they probably hear you speak and you have rolled their eyes at you and say, "Oh, there's no way you've gone through that. Where's the proof? Where's everything?"
Mhm.
You've heard all the annoying questions before. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. People are entitled to their opinion. It's not going to stop what I have to say and what I have to share. I'm not here to prove anything one way or the other. I'm here to tell my story. And it's done nothing but good in my life to share that truth and the truth of these abductions. It's brought my whole life back to be able to share it. Yeah.
Why do you think it stopped for you?
I think that it was the soul plan that it would continue up till, XYZ and then be done. So that I could actually be here and be well enough, healed enough to bring a voice of light to what, for many has been a tragic darkness.
There has been so much negativity regarding the secret space program because of the court cases that Corey Goode has been involved in. I don't want to go deep into that theory, but he basically pretty much said that he made it all up in order to fund his career. The secret space program, because of that, has taken a real black eye into what could be a truth for a lot of people. How do you kind of get around that negativity that has been portrayed over the last few years?
Yeah, kind of a shame there, but I mean I understand it all. There's a lot of division in the SSP community and every community around the planet. Divide and conquer still has been one of the biggest ways we've been controlled and moderated, let's say, on this planet. So it's not surprising to me. It doesn't stop, the goodness that's also in this community and in the, people out in your audience who are open-minded to this. People can make their call. If that's Corey's last statement on it, that's fine. That's Corey. But doesn't speak for the rest of us,
Oh, no, I understand that. But, I mean, it still puts a black eye on the community because for so long he was the self-proclaimed face of the SSP, even trying to copyright the SSP notion so people couldn't use it.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Let those people, it speaks for itself in my view, that enough said, right? Like, yeah.
I notice you're a little uncomfortable with that.
Which part?
Just talking about the whole aspect of what's gone on.
I don't get to, taking sides and creating more division. What people do is up to them. I'm not here to make judgment around it either way. So, yeah.
Hold that thought. Rebecca Rose, Secret Space Program. What is a milab? What's it all about? Why are they taking us? We got a long journey ahead with with Rebecca coming on up on Spaced Out Radio. Give me a second here, guys. Guys, I don't know what you're saying about the audio. I just checked YouTube. I can hear myself perfectly, and it's not quiet. It's not as bad as anywhere else. I mean, that's getting a little ridiculous. I just checked it. That's what I was listening to. Could hear every word. Audio is not shot, Kevin. Turn up your speakers. It's funny because we're all listening on YouTube. It's not low. I just checked it. Then it might be your device. Testing 1, 2. All right, there we go. Hi, I'm Dave. Rebecca, I'm going to unmute you. Or you got yourself muted. Yeah, you got yourself muted.
Go. Yeah.
There we go. All right. I'm going to just get you to talk for a quick second.
All right. Can you hear me?
All right. Let's try that. You want to give me a countdown from 5?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Beautiful. There we go. There we go. Perfect. We got about a minute, a little bit, about a minute left. you to turn that down. Perfect. We got about 17 seconds. Thank you to Area 50 Free, 3, Kitty, Mel WD40, Tim, and T-Bone, and Michael for the great super chats. Appreciate your love and support, everybody. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Experiencer, Secret Space Program, and milab victim? I think that's the proper word we can use. Rebecca Rose is here, and we're going to talk to her about that. milabs. You know, I've heard some pretty shady milab stories over the years. Did the milabs start with you at childhood as well, or did they happen at a later time?
Yeah, they were certainly my time and back with when I was 9 was military abduction. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is it something you like to talk about?
Mixed bag. Depends how the subject matter is handled, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I'm here talking about the story for sure, and it's there's parts that are not always easy to talk about. That's fair to say, right? But there's also a lot of light in the story, because I don't think that these programs are functioning in quite the same way that they were when I was in them. So I think there's been a lot of shift with that. And that people are still abducted, maybe it's somewhat different ways, but I think also the method to the madness has probably shifted somewhat. The agendas maybe have changed a little bit or pivoted, and there's a lot more use of, satellite technology targeting and things that go on for people. But I don't know that it's stayed static over these decades, from the time I was abducted to now.
Do you feel that when you go through these types of situations, that there is some sort of pattern that they put you through? Because it's real aliens, and then it's humanoids, and then, the people get involved. It's so strange to me.
It is strange. I think that's aptly stated, Dave. It is strange. Yeah. And because you'll hear different testimonies, and nobody's testimony completely matches anybody else's, and their recall is going to be different. Their experiences are going to be different. And it can make for a rather confused public about what's actually going on. So yeah.
As you are a part of this, and it will remain a part of you right through, did you feel that they were taking advantage of your brains, of your psychic ability? You are very connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely for psi ability. They wanted to be able to build that out, and I think they also wanted the darker energy that had come through me through my mother's bloodline. That I think was compelling. There's various things. What are the parents? Both my parents were my father was in the army. Both my parents, my father and mother, were in the military. That's where they met. That's where they married. 5 weeks after they met, they were married, and I think they in some ways functioned as breeders for program children. So there's a lot there. My father was, I think, targeted from the time he was in the military in his very early life to kind of go in a certain direction, end up working in, for the deep state and in the classified world in projects that, On his deathbed, he shared some things with me that were eye-opening. I didn't really know that he was working in this way and where he was traveling and that he was meeting at CIA headquarters and, traveling about, not knowing really where he was, what he was doing. And, his inventor's mind was also very desired. By ultimately, he was working for Lockheed Martin and naval intelligence, like I mentioned. So.
Did your parents know this was all going on? Did they understand the depths of it? I know you mentioned in the first half hour that you believe that they had some understanding of it, but did they know the depths of it?
Oh, I don't think so. My father may have. There was a lot going on, and like I said, he was seminal too. Why I ended up in these programs. If he didn't have those connections, to, as you had said previously, shadow government and so on, I would not have ended up, where I was, and nor would have my brother. So my mother was pretty traumatized herself and dissociated, so I don't think she had a clue what was happening. My father, yeah, I think he knew on some level, like I said in the first half of our show. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, what is the difference between being abducted and military abducted?
Yeah, well, with the military abduction, I mean, I think it speaks for itself. The military has some role to play, often working with regressive aliens, ETs, extraterrestrials in the mix. Abduction itself could be any variety of off-world being interfacing and interfering, we could say, or it could be, some abductions, maybe abduction isn't the best word, but some abductions are by benevolent beings. They're all not out to get us. There's favorable things that go on out there. It's hard to call those abductions, but just think about something so extraordinary happening to somebody, whether we call that ET intelligence favorable or unfavorable, it's still shocking to the human system because we are schooled and conditioned and programmed in a way to like laugh at little green men and write it off. Like that doesn't happen, right? That's over. Like that's not existent. That's just a fiction when in fact, that's actually going on and it's a truth. So I hope that answers your question. There's a lot to that. Yeah.
During a military abduction, how is it different from an alien abduction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you might have some military personnel that are handling you, or you're taken to a deep underground military base and handled there, maybe kept for a time, maybe traumatized, maybe receiving intel about something, or being debriefed about something. So the military has an involvement. It will usually, in my experience, has involved some kind of abduction to, again, a deep underground military base. Of which there are many. Like the base I mentioned north of Chicago has its underground side. Great Lakes Naval Station.
How many bases were you at?
That's one I very much remember. When I mentioned the being taken to what I call the bus stop before I would be sent to the moon. I don't know exactly where I was. This is a problem, whether you're saying the famed, Area 51 or somewhere else, Langley or something like this, or who knows where. There's so many. There's no neon sign saying you are here. So it can be sometimes difficult to tell where you've been taken, where you are, where you're being held. And it's on a need to know basis, especially from a child's perspective. You're not anything, you're owned by these, whether it's military or gray extraterrestrials or something else. You don't have a need to know. Nobody's going to inform you of your position. You're just there, you're being handled. So.
I remember talking to Melinda Leslie and Misha Johnson about their milab experience.
And
they were stating that when it happened to them, they, especially to Misha, they brought in about a 7-8 foot reptilian with a long tail, basically saying he was going to do horrendous things to her and her family, and it was a horrific, nightmarish experience because you just don't expect to be a part of something like that. It's right out of a horror movie.
And it is. Well, when something you're interfacing with suddenly with something that big and with not necessarily good intentions, it's very scary. Yeah. It's very
So
adrenalizing. Yeah.
so what do you think the purpose of that is? Why do you think they're doing this?
You mean why did the Draco show up? I mean that can take
Yeah.
many different reasons and forms. And from what I know of Melinda and this happened when they were at a conference, wasn't it? Melinda and Misha, didn't they get abducted from the hotel room or something? I forget what happened there. I've heard Misha tell that story, and I think Melinda as well. But some of it can just be to cause fear and to get you bent to the will of, whether it's military trying to, in Misha's case, they were trying to get her to stop writing her book. There can be many reasons why. I mean, on the other hand, we could look at the Draco who I interfaced with on the moon. They were training me telepathically and in certain ways to um, create a program in which I would believe I was owned by them. They would, again, I was mastered by them out in the Kuiper Belt in my late 20s. So they had a long sort of interaction with me over time through these abductions. So it really varies. There's not one pat answer to that.
Do you still get nightmares over it?
No, I used to. I used to wake up screaming. I used to have a lot of nightmares. And in fact, a lot of what I thought was, when I was a kid and I was being taken, and this happened to my brother, I found out just, in the past few years, he was also, it's like you're like this sleep paralysis, as it's called. You're mute, you're trying to scream, something bad is happening. Everything is working in slow motion. And I always felt like, are those nightmares or what is happening? Because I couldn't remember everything that was going on within the context of those night experiences. And I remembered later that was a lot of that was abduction experiences. I would wake up with my, clothes on funny or off, or my head was at the foot of the bed, or jewelry would be gone, or I was having a lot of nosebleeds in my 4th year of life. I didn't know that was a very classic abduction sign. And in a lot of, my child's mind was unwell, not doing well, even at that early age, or especially at that early age. Yeah.
It's so hard to fathom, even as a parent.
Yeah.
Thinking if that was happening to my children, how would I react to that? What was your what was your specialty? I know you were intuitive, but did you have a high IQ as a child? Did you have
Yeah,
some
both.
sort of
Yeah. Yeah, both my brother and I passed through the gifted program, and that's sometimes how they route kids. They're testing you and like, how do you perform under certain conditions? Yeah, how there's so many things. Like you said, the psychic ability, the ability for the child to be, is the child already heavily traumatized? In the programs that I was in, that was found to be most desirable attribute, because dissociation makes a very complacent child who can be, bent to the will of quote unquote masters, very simply and easily. They want kids who come from messed up homes, who have experienced tremendous amounts of trauma already. And in my case, they wanted that German bloodline from my mother's side. I mean, the Germans, I was taken to the German base on the moon, and they were working closely with the Greys and the Dracos. So the Germans seemed to like some of that German in their abductees, let's say, or for the dark reptilian energy that was in my mother's bloodline, which I have transmuted and shifted that DNA entirely. And that's a beautiful story as well. So there is a lot of light in my story. It's not just this hell realm of darkness. And I want to make that clear too. Without these experiences, I don't think I would have ever woken up to my psychic gifts and be doing the full-time work that I do now. Very happily do now. I've got a longstanding career doing that, and without all of this, I don't think that would be intact. And that's a win for me. That's a victory. I'm using now for good the qualities or the abilities that I was taken for and abducted as a child. And I think that's really beautiful.
Were you cognizant of how strong your abilities were?
No, I don't think so. No.
So they were basically able to exploit that then.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's what they're doing, and you said that well, Dave. They're exploiting what's already naturally occurring in their child victims, let's say, or child targets, and building it out. That would be how I would call that. Whatever your skill set is, they're going to amplify it, and yeah, they're going to build that out to the farthest degree that they can. Yeah.
Were you ever in one of your emotional states as a child, looking up at maybe a soldier or an alien, and maybe emotional, crying, saying, "Why me? Why are you doing this to me?"
Absolutely. I think that happened, fairly frequently. And in my Montauk experiences, which were probably my darkest experiences, consistently dark experiences there, uh, yes, I remember that.
What
Yeah.
was their response?
They're kind of programmed people themselves, very damaged people. So they could, it's almost like, I don't want to say soulless, but their hearts have been turned off. So I don't know that they were almost functioning as if under a spell themselves. Like I had a Navy, a Navy woman. I remember her very well, who was my handler in Montauk, and she had her pert little Navy, nylons, 1970s clicky shoes that were blue, and her little hat and her little blue uniform. She was I remember her very well, and she had it's so chilling in a way how they can come off playing almost this mother role with a child and be completely betraying you and harming you. So when they do put women into these particular roles, or did at that time, that's what I remember her very well. And yeah, there would be horrible things happening, and she would come to me and kind of give me a cool cloth on my head, and I would look to her for help, because that's all there was. I wanted support, and there wasn't any. So there's a lot of sadness in that. I'm sure that conveys to the audience, like, well, how sick in a way is that? Fortunately, that's behind me, and I did live through that. A lot of the kids in Montauk were expendable. A lot of the kids would be experimented on until they died or expired. And that was the plan. But some of them were just being programmed and trained and handled and groomed to end up in the SSP or some other program. That's my memory of it, at least back in the 1970s. I was in Montauk around 78, 79. Yeah. Then my godfather was the kind of middleman, the handler there, who worked next to my father. They were best friends, working for the deep state. He worked in the same vein as Dad, and they were buddies. And he had a private plane, and he was responsible for a lot of things that happened to me as well. So between my father and my godfather, there was a lot of extraordinary goings on. Yeah.
How did you get to Montauk?
Yeah, I feel like that was it must have been a time and back experience, even though he could well have dropped me off he had like I said, he was in the Air Force, and he worked in the classified world. He had a private plane, he had his pilot's license, and we went places together. He could have dropped me off physically. Then there was age regression technology there at Montauk. What I call the silver bullet was used to source probabilities through the future, through future time, but it could also be used to age regress. So you can't just, if you're going to keep a child alive at Montauk, you cannot return it home to its parents as bruised and bloodied and battered and starved and traumatized by all the things that happened there. That's going to raise some eyebrows. So you've got to use the age regression technology to restore the body and, to some extent, the mind, to deposit the child back in its, home. Yeah.
Were you being taken physically, or were you being taken spiritually?
Yeah, and some abductions were physical, and some were very much the taking of the consciousness, or spiritually taken, as you might say. And it can be tough to tell in recall, because it feels very, very physical in nature. I mean, I remember coming back into my body after an abduction, and it's like the body's being like slammed back into the bed. But is that just my consciousness returning? It's hard to tell. It's almost like crash landing back in this physical form through what we might call as the light body or astral body. So it can be tough to tell, but then there can also be, I'm sure you've talked to people who have physical marks and, things that go on through abductions that are physical in our biology, physiology that you wake up with the next morning. So some people are taken quite bodily, and some people are taken through the auspices of, as you said, spiritually or through consciousness.
Were they ever trying to take away your gifts?
That's a great question too. I think, how do I answer that? Because they wanted to use them in a certain way to meet their own ends, right? So in a way, it was like controlling me to an extent that I couldn't use those abilities in the ways that I would choose. I was no longer the master of myself. Someone else was consistently. I was, we could say, enslaved by these programs. So I would say they wanted the gifts more than anything, but to be the controllers and the masters of them. And it's not that anybody there would say, you know, what would you like to do with your psychic ability today? Would you like to help the planet? That's not a choice point for the child, at least not in my experience. So.
No, I mean, that's just, I know a lot of people within the hybridization program. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, there's program after program after program, right? And people in the hybridization program often say that the aliens do not give any emotion. Whether they are taking eggs from a woman or sperm from a man, they don't have any emotion. If they bring two people together in an intimate setting, they stand there and watch, showing no emotion. Very, very studious, trying to figure out how it works, and they never seem to be able to figure things out. Is it like that with the other programs too, where it's very robotic and very callous in their emotion?
Well, it depends. You know, as you were describing that situation with the hybrid programs, you're definitely talking about the gray extraterrestrials. I mean, there's many different types of gray, but that's classical gray abduction for hybrid programs, when they come in and they have no emotion and they're doing that to your, you know, reproductive system, like 100%. As far as, you know, the Germans that I worked with on the moon, I had more interface with the Draco in that case, in those abductions, but the humans that I remember were very, like, almost like desouled, like little drones. There were drone grays, like the short grays, that were doing kind of robotic work up there in the labs. And then there was also the people that were there. The Germans seemed, and some of them seemed very without sensitivity, devoid of emotion. So we could see that in the human sector as well as the extraterrestrial sector. There's also a lot of benevolent beings out there. I don't want to, you know, again, like, you know, you said with Corey Good mentioning him, or, you know, I try not to just generalize or speaking in black and white terms about anyone or anything. I think that's unhelpful in our human trajectory at this point. But there's some deviance from that norm. Not all ETs just work on humans and have no feeling. I remember some mantids who are surgeons on the Mars base. They were doing work on me. I remember waking up from some kind of procedure where they're augmenting my physical form. And they looked at each other. I was under these lights. They looked at each other and they were like, oh, did we F up? You know, they were like, oh no, did we mess up our you know, did we mess up what we were doing here? And they were very good at what they did, but I wouldn't say they were passively emotionless in their engagement with me and the others they were working on. Just an example. Yeah.
We got about a minute to go here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Rebecca, you know, the idea that this was going on with these alien species, did they ever, while they were operating you, tell you why they were doing it?
Not to my memory. Not to my memory. Again, a need-to-know basis, and if you're a kid and you're owned by these beings, like, nobody cares about your rights or to inform you of anything or when you're going to leave Mars or what's going to happen to you. Nobody's telling you anything. So that's what I can share about my experience. Yeah.
What was Mars like?
In 30 seconds? Always seems really bright to me. Yeah. Yeah.
we're going to
Yeah.
continue that
Yeah.
conversation when we get back.
Yeah.
But
Mars in its way was a really beautiful planet. I have some really good memories there, as well as, highly deviant memories. So atmospherically, I always felt hot, but it could have been the suit that I was also wearing, like a super suit or a living conscious suit.
all
Yeah.
right. Well, let's continue that when we return. Rebecca Rose, what it's like being part of the secret space program on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Rebecca, I know you can hear me. I'm just putting you in the green room for right now. I will be right back. I am back. Good question, T-Bone. Bring Rebecca back. Don't forget to unmute. There seems to be a beeping sound coming from your side.
I don't hear any sound unless it's coming from internally in the mic or computer, but I don't hear anything on this end.
That's weird.
Huh.
It's funny, I couldn't hear it before. Other people were saying they could hear it, but now I can. So weird. Almost sounds like an alarm going off. Like a beeping alarm.
Yeah, there's nothing on this end.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you tonight to Area 53, T-Bone, Tim, Michael, Mel, and Kitty for the super chat. Greatly appreciate your love and support. We're coming back here in 5 seconds. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Waveson. Waveson is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Rebecca Rose is here. What's it like being part of the 20 and Back program, the secret space program, a highly controversial subject when it comes to the dark side of ufology, the government, and everything in between? It is a heck of a story. If you've missed the first part of this show, you're going to want to tune it on in on our free archives. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. We want to talk about Mars. What's it like being there? We got into it just a bit beforehand. You were there. How did you get there? And what was it like?
Yeah, well, I mentioned the year being 1982. So we're talking about last century. This is some decades ago. I was 9 years old, September 1982, not quite 10 years old. I'm first taken to Great Lakes Naval Station, north of Chicago, the biggest naval training center in the nation. Trauma bonded with my twin, Dean, another 9-year-old boy. And we were sent through jump gate to Mars at that point. So, and jump gates, I guess the soundbite on a jump gate, as I understand it, or how I see it psychically, is that they compress space and time. So, deposited in Mars. And I remember, like I said before the break, just physically, Mars felt always kind of hot and bright to me, even though it's farthest from the sun. And it could be just because there was so much. I think the atmosphere is different there, and maybe not as much a shield in that atmosphere from the sun. I never struggled to breathe or never needed seemingly a breathing apparatus there. And I feel like it's my time on Mars certainly influenced my proclivity toward very desolate areas on the planet or very remote areas. I love that. It's why I live in interior Alaska. It's why I am fond of desert places and these things. I think it brings me back to something a bit otherworldly from my abduction experiences. I certainly don't gravitate to cities and towns. I like wide open spaces. And piloting, frankly, despite everything that had happened to me of the darker sort to land me here, I mean, piloting was something else. I mean, those are some of my best memories from the programs. Also because I was a solo patrol pilot, and being able to have some level of autonomy out there was pretty special to me, even though I was always kind of tethered to base through my interior technology and through telepathic connection to base and wire technology, so to say, or chip technology back to base. So it was never like I could just drive away, fly away from what was happening, but in any case, there's some more favorable vignettes in my memory from all of those experiences, as well as the darker side of things. Yeah. And it was certainly a planet that I felt like I would, I don't know, I felt like it was this place that I would never leave. And again, bringing us back to the question that you had posed, like, did anybody ever debrief you? And I can't remember ever receiving any debriefing. I was an owned being there, so I never got that. So it was sort of this nebulous nature of like, when is this going to end? Is it ever going to end? And what's going to happen to me next? So that gives a little snapshot. And like I said, the training there was very precise, happened over seasons and years, so there's a lot to that. And I feel like still, as much recall as I have about my experiences, I've said this before, I will be a little gray-haired lady, in my 80s getting recall from these programs. And it's like, for as much as I can remember, there's so much that I don't remember. As much detail as I have, there's still a lot that is missing. And I'm somewhat okay with that. Like, how much do I actually really need to remember? Although there's been beautiful things that have come to my recall too. And I'm grateful for that also.
What did they have you doing on Mars? Were you part of a research project? Were you there to test the atmosphere? Did
like I said, we were experimental beings. Like, put it this way, there's things you can do off world, off planet, off Earth that cannot happen on this planet. You cannot get away with doing what they were doing on Earth in many ways. So it's the perfect top secret proving ground, Mars or any other, planetary system other than this one, because there was experimental weapons, there was experimental technology carried out on humans. So like I said, we ended up being, part of our duty was just being, we were put into service patrolling bases, base patrol, and protecting corporate assets on Mars. So that doesn't sound too glamorous, right? So it wasn't like over the years, I feel like the auspices of these agencies, their target may have changed. Like they weren't always. They wanted to see how far they could push the human organism, and how far they could move. Keep it sentient, keep the being, myself, Dean, my twin, or someone else in our unit, and many beings over time, many humans over time. How far can you push it without killing it? How far can you push the man or woman into almost like a cyborg body? How far can you alter it? How far can you go? They were always pushing that envelope, and we were very much experimental beings in that way.
Mm-hmm. Did you use a shuttle or a black triangle to get there, or were you using jump rooms much like Andrew Bashago?
Yeah, like I said, we went from a jump room, Great Lakes Naval Station north of Chicago, jump room from there to Mars. Yeah.
If you were at that Great Lakes Naval Station, would you be able to tell the room or the building that it was in?
I don't think so at this point, because again, it's underground, and I don't know. It'd be an interesting thing to go there and see if there was any recall. It's a big base. There's a lot going on there, and like when you get into the underground, a deep underground military base, there's endless. Like when I was underground on the moon, that's it's huge. It's fathomless. I mean, you cannot even grasp the scope of that. So could I even locate where the jump gate was? Is it still there? I don't know. We're talking how many years later, 40 plus, 45 years later. That's a long time. So.
How do you have recall?
That's a great question as well. A lot of people speak of doing hypnotic regression. I've never done that. I tried it, but it's not, I won't, because I was kind of abused through hypnosis, through handlers in my very early life. I can't let go into that. But my memory really started, and I had pieces of the story from very early on, but a lot of it came back through meditation. Back in the early, it was around 2012. Two things happened. I was hit by a car. I was a competitive cyclist at the time. I was out on a training ride in northern New Mexico, very close to Dulce, where I was also sent in the programs, ironically. And I was hit. I had a head injury. I also had an MRI. Something in my brain. It's almost like the head injury started to rattle things loose, so to speak, from my subconscious mind. And it was around that time too that I also began a very devoted meditation practice, because my life had slowly unraveled. I wasn't doing well, and I didn't know what else to do other than sit there with my mind and everything that was arising and be a witness to it. And that's, whenever we become still, we're getting out of the beta brainwave state into the alpha and theta brainwave state. What does that do? It unlocks the conscious mind, expands consciousness. You're going to have some really interesting things come up from your psyche, from the deep depths. Things I had been running from my whole life started to come up in meditation. And that's how a lot of memory recall still happens for me, sitting in stillness.
Do you think then, when you were there, that you were able to get a real grasp of life on the planet, whether it was alien beings or microbes or even water? Did you ever get a feeling for that?
Yeah, I was, long story. I don't know how much we want to go into this, but we certainly have time. There's water underground on Mars. Yeah. There's water there, and there was lush vegetation actually in an underground environment on Mars in my memory. Now, I'm no expert on the planet. I haven't seen the whole planet. It's a big place. I mean, it's smaller than Earth as far as I know, but I certainly haven't seen it all. So I'm no expert on saying this, that, and the other about, I can speak from my own experience, and that's what I know to the best of my ability. But I don't know every avenue or area or of the environment of Mars.
Did you ever look at the idea when you were there that this could be one day hospitable by a million humans like Elon Musk wants to do?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish in that direction when I was there long ago, but yeah, I mean, I think it's already been inhabited. It was certainly inhabited to some extent there when I was at those bases. That's what we were protecting, is, both civilian and corporate interests and military interests on Mars. So I don't know, over time what's become of all of that. The movement from the 70s, 80s, 90s to now. I'm not privy to all of that.
On your time on Mars, was there battles going on the surface? Because I would assume you were underground due to the radiation.
We weren't entirely underground. We had missions above ground and walking around on Mars. So there were battles above ground. And I remember very clearly I had very bad PTSD connected to fireworks for a long time. That's healed. I could not be around fireworks for many, many years because they just caused terrible trauma in my system. And I would go into almost like a seizure. And that's I understood after my memories started coming back that was from that was all from Mars. It's like we become traumatized veterans, and yet we come back to this planet and there's absolutely no help for us. Because the programs are not, they're off record. There's no notation of their existence. They do not exist in their fiction, according to the agencies in command. But I do remember we were ambushed by some mantids who had some help from the Draco, I believe, and they ambushed our base at night. And and they were using our own craft, our own gear, sort of a mutiny. And I can understand why. We had not been very kind to them. And I totally understand it. But I remember having my leg blown off and everyone running. There was lights that were like citron yellow and green in the sky, and running and saying, get up and run, we're going to die. And I couldn't, my leg was gone. And there my memory ends. I don't know if my clone died or what happened, but it was pretty emotional recall and kind of difficult to talk about. It was so much. It was like being in the middle of a war zone, and it's not forgettable. It's a pretty scarring type of memories, to adrenalizing memories, there. Yeah.
You're not the first one I've heard who has lost appendages up there during these battles. I mean, how did they reattach? How did they make your body one again? Do you have scars on your body?
Yeah, they can use pods, regen pods, and things. It depends how bad the injury is. If you're gone, they're not gonna. They're probably gonna, just let your body go and use a clone at that point. If you're dead, now, like I said, my memory blacks out at that point where my leg is gone. So I don't know if I was rehabilitated from that point and they were able to save my leg through, advanced technology, or if, I expired at that point. I do have memories of clones dying on multiple occasions, and those are kind of hard to recall. You think, well, you're a clone. What do you feel? What do you sense? I have memory of my consciousness not knowing exactly where to go. It's like I know my body's dead and down. I'm in the sand face down, and I've been as if tased by one of the giant spiders on Mars. We had cloaking devices within our technology, for protection, and mine had a malfunction. Could have been pilot error, my own fault on that, but I was killed by a spider, and it kind of fried my technology and also by my biology. And I remember not knowing exactly where my consciousness needed to go. There was this moment of great confusion and desolation, and almost like a moment of waking up in that time. That was poignant in itself, where do I go from here? And then suddenly there's this almost like a signal calling me back to the next clone experience. It's like it's built into the clone's frequency. Yeah.
How you're 9 years old when you're doing this?
I was sent there at 9, but remember, I'm there for many years. So I become a teenager and I'm moving into adulthood, all on Mars. So the recall with this being, for example, killed by the spider, and the battle is me in my 20s. This isn't early on memories. Yeah.
Okay, so for people who are maybe a little lost out here, this is what the 20 and Back program is. You leave as a child or a teenager, you go for 20 years, and then they bring you back to the time that you were of the age when they took you. Correct?
Correct. Yeah.
That is just so strange. So
it is so strange. Yeah, it is. And it's strange having to metabolize that. Like when all these memories started coming back, I hadn't done a lot of research on this. I didn't really know what I was remembering, and it seemed totally insane. Like, is this even a thing? Is this what goes on? Am I remembering this accurately? Because you go through this period during memory recall that for months and weeks and things, I just felt like, have I lost my mind? Like, is this even a thing? So, if your audience has some moments of confusion, I get that, absolutely. It sounds crazy. It absolutely sounds crazy.
How many times have you questioned yourself on this?
Yeah, that's a good point. In the beginning, I did. And then as things kept coming and I was connecting the dots, my father's involvement, my mother's involvement, her bloodline, all the documentation he left behind about his work for the deep state. Wasn't called the deep state. It was called the Lockheed Martin and the U.S. Navy and so on and so forth, CIA. I've got some good corroborating evidence. And then I look at some of the artwork that I made in my late teens. It looks like what I became on Mars. It's a cyborg female. And drawings of aliens, and looking at my brothers. Oh, what did he spend his whole childhood doing? Drawing spaceships and aliens. And just these pieces and parts and people I've met and conversations I've had and other dreams that I've had. And it all checks out. That's the thing. And also proof in the pudding, so to say. is that my life has done nothing but get better and brighter since I've recalled these things and said, okay, yes, this is possible. I think if it were all a fiction, that would not probably be the case. Yeah.
How do you have conversations with people about this?
I often don't. I live, in some ways, you can live a little bit of a double life. Although people who follow me on Telegram and YouTube and Rumble and these things, they kind of know about the SSP. They've heard me speak. When you start going public with this, and I had I've been speaking publicly on this for 5 years now, in my first experience speaking publicly, I thought, what am I doing? I'm going to completely ruin my life. And it felt true in the moment. It felt very true. Like, what am I doing? I'm burning the bridge back to conventional reality. But I understood it was also my calling. It was very much part of the script of my life, so to speak. And I had some trepidation about coming forward and starting to speak to this, but I also felt like this, like if I don't, I'm going to just die. I have to give voice to this or I will go crazy.
Many of your friends, if we can call them that, did go crazy. They have been lost to all sorts of medical issues. They've been lost in life. They've been lost in many places. How have you survived?
Yeah. Oh, I've had a lot of help. I am also connected to what we could call the Galactic Confederation. I don't think my plan was ever to fully expire here, although, there've been, let's say, being brought near to death many times. Changes one's spiritual vibration, number one, but I think it was part of the plan that I would end up on shows such as yours or speaking publicly to this and all of that. So I've had a lot of help in my healing. And I also think with the soul's code, it was meant that I would live, that gets deep into, let's say, quantum spirituality and other things going on beyond our third density conception of self. So the contracts we make before we come in, what we want to learn about, what we want to be part of. From my perspective, I don't think I was ever meant to die or lose my mind. Although those were in close proximity to me. Those were possibilities at certain way stations on the journey of my life thus far, and not to be returned to.
What's the future look like now?
Personally or globally? What do you mean?
For you on this level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm probably at a better place than I've ever been. My body's aging, my mind is getting better. My spiritual practice is very strong. And I love the work I do in the world. There's a level of abundance and love in my life that I've never experienced. Those are all wins. So my future's just gotten better. And despite what it can look like on the surface of our planet right now, looks like can look pretty desolate out there in the trenches of humanity. But I feel optimistic about where we're going as more people are waking up. I mean, look at how many people you're reaching with your radio show. Would that have been possible 20 years ago? I don't know. Or 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I think people's minds are opening. And I think our trajectory is really shifting. I know not everyone may agree with me on that, but that's what I see through the, Rebecca Rose glasses. I see a lot of hope. And in part that may come from working with a lot of people who are making tremendous journeys at the soul level, spiritual level, waking up. I see them as clients, and I know there's a lot of movement through the collective as a result of, the demographic that I serve. I know that there's a lot of light. There's a movement of light. Yeah.
Now, I have not asked if you have children or young ones around you, and that's really none of my business for this program. But with about a minute to go here before we go to break, were you able to break the cycle on your end, or was it something that it has continued with future generations around you?
That's a great question. Yeah, I broke the cycle in deciding not to have children in this embodiment, although I do have a son from Mars from the programs that has become probably one of the biggest love stories of my life. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
And do you still see the child?
I see him psychically. Yes. Yeah, I do.
How old would he be now?
He's an adult. He's a bit of a warrior. He's half reptilian. He comes from one of the indigenous races on Mars, wed with my biology. They use my eggs. It was yeah, that's a long story we can return to after the break.
All right. More with Rebecca Rose, Secret Space Program. Coming up.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear. I will get some audience questions coming up here. Don't you worry. Never fear. Merle's in town, but he's not here. It's true. I saw Merle tonight. It's true. Yeah, Science Bob is having some problems with blood clots right now, and he literally fell asleep and couldn't wake up. He's sleeping about 12 hours right now. I tried giving him a call this morning, and he did not pick up, but I have heard from him via text message apologizing that he slept right through, but his health is pretty bad right now. And if we can all send Science Bob some love and support and some prayers, that would be absolutely wonderful. I know he would love it. And you could hit him up on Facebook or X or whatever, or send it to Lulla Bright, and she'll get the messages to him. But let's try and get that going. You know what, the Doug Shelby, you're not far off from that, my man. The Michael Leger here as well. We got about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Yeah, I might have to do a Tim Hortons run after the show for Merle and the guys he's working with out there. Got about 1 minute. All right. I'm having a lot of fun with you tonight. Thank you, Rebecca.
No, awesome. Good to hear. Yeah.
All right. Big thank you tonight to Michael, Tim, T-Bone times 2, Area 53 and Kitty Cattywhack, and Mel WD40 for lubing us up tonight. B. Arthur has joined us in the chat room tonight. Hello, B. How you doing? Good to see you. All right. We got about 15 seconds. Let's see here. About 7 seconds. Hi there. My name is Dave Scott. This is Spaced Out Radio. And we're glad to have you here tonight, hanging on out, talking about the secret space program with Rebecca Rose. Hey, but first, before we bring her back in, I want to remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go, Rebecca Rose. We have her till the top of the hour. And Rebecca, thank you so much for being here and letting us know your absolutely incredible story.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to get some audience questions here because they are backing up here. Let's go to Paul right off the bat, who's asking, what are your thoughts on documented alien implants?
That's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing. That's happened. There's also etheric implants, but yeah, that's real.
Do you have any?
No, I don't have any implants. I did, in the I certainly did in the programs, but no implants now. Yeah.
All right, let's go to Blue Cruz here, who is asking, when the artificial body is injured or damaged, is there any indication that a Tesla-type technology such as coils were used in one or multiple sessions in order to activate and achieve a full healing?
Yeah, I don't know. Indication that a Tesla-type technology were used. Yeah, I mean, that's nothing I remember from my own recall in the programs, any kind of coils, Tesla coils or anything. Yeah, I can't speak very much to that. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's go to Human Carl. Rebecca, do you recall interacting with our fighters that were from the UK or Germany? Any recall of Citadel craft?
I remember people from Europe. I don't know, were they from UK or Germany? I'm not entirely sure. And I don't know what is meant by Citadel craft. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's move on. Let's go next to T-Bone. If we are part of a galactic federation, how did you fall between the cracks?
Oh, that's a great question, T-Bone. Yeah, I like that. So that's a very salient point to the whole experience that I had. I think what you're meaning, T-Bone, is like, why did they let you get into these programs? And now that's seminal to my, let's say, volunteerism within all of this. And the Galactic Confederation at the time, we were very interested in what was going on with the galactic slave trade here on Earth and off-world. And I came in to kind of be the eyes of the Confederation to learn firsthand what was exactly going on with the galactic slave trade, because it's in violation of a lot of galactic agreements and, let's say, codes, that those things were taking place. Yeah, a lot of trade in humans, human parts, ET technology, ET clones, and body parts, and these things. So just to your point, T-Bone, it was part of my part of the plan with the Confederation that I would come in and gather intel about the slave trade.
Follow up from T-Bone. Do you know of Arkham Ra? He was in some of the same programs, if not all.
Yeah, I'm not interviewed with him, and I don't know his story. I don't watch a lot of stuff from other experiences, partly because I'm busy and because I don't want to be front loaded by other people's information. So I'm familiar with his name. I haven't spoken to him, and I don't know. Yeah. So to your question, I know of him, but not much more.
Okay, let us go to another question here. Let's go to Paramarv. You mentioned being at Montauk in the late 70s. How long were you there? Any chance you were there in 1983 when the Philadelphia experiment visitors would have come? And the chair?
Yeah, so in 83, I would have been gone. I was already on Mars at that point. I was taken to Mars in 82. So I was finished in Montauk around 79. And I have no recall of being in chair, but what they used on me was what I would call a silver bullet. So I'm lying down in kind of a very streamlined kind of almost like a coffin that they would put me in. And it's similar to the chair in that it is used to, send your split your body and mind and send you into time. Very similar, but this was something else I think that was experimental at the time. And pun intended, the Navy lady was the one who was helping to handle me while I was put many, many dozens of times, brought close to death in that silver bullet to look at time and also to fracture my mind. And that's the same technology that was used to age regress as well. So it can forward through time and also regress time.
Wow. All right, let's move on to another question. Let's go back to T-Bone. How many times have you been cloned in your estimate?
Great question. I don't have a number on that. I could say I remember dying probably half a dozen times at least. Yeah.
When he asks being cloned, what does that mean for people who may not understand?
Replicated in the body. So your physical form is then duplicated. And there's different ways to make a clone, but that's the gist of it. Depends what you want to do with the clone. If you want it to be in a battle for a single, period of time, or if you want to do something more complex, like have it live out a full lifetime and need to have a more high functioning clone, it'll be a different process.
That's pretty amazing. Absolutely amazing. The fact that you were flying craft up on Mars, are there any craft you've seen on Earth that replicate what you were flying up there?
This is a funny one. Yeah, I have memories of flying this old junker German craft on Mars. It seemed like it was a relic from like World War II or something. It's crazy that had been retrofitted with higher technology for Mars. So it's interesting you bring that up. There were other more elite type looking craft that I've never seen on this Earth. But yeah, kind of a funny aside to your question.
What was it like flying?
Awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. Some, like I said, some of the best memories are of me piloting, whether it was on Mars or later on when I was owned by the Draco out in the Kuiper Belt, being a patrol for their mothership. I mean, very high-tech craft, nothing that you would ever see on Earth, very much wed with my consciousness and my mind. Nobody else pilots your craft. It is so wed to your essence. It responds to your commands. Very singular in nature. So, and actually, beautiful atmosphere out there. Yeah.
Were you flying by your feeling? Like people who claim to be taken by aliens who are allowed to fly their craft, they say it's very biological. That you sit in the chair, you put your hands in almost like hand holes on on like orbs, and wherever your mind believes you want to go, you can go, or you can steer with your hands. Is that what it was like?
It's not wrong. Yeah, it's because it's driven through technology, technology of consciousness, that is. So it's not like you're, holding a steering wheel and like, driving your car. It's wed. This is what I mean by telekinetic training on Mars. It begins in a very simple functional way, but that leads to training one's consciousness to wed with the consciousness of the craft. The craft is alive. Everything's got consciousness in a way. And once we start treating it as such, our reality shifts. But yes, conscious crafts, living craft, like the Galactic Confederation that I'm connected to, that Syrian light ship, is completely alive. It's conscious, it's sentient, it is interfacing with you at all times and providing for your needs. So we have to up level our concept of what it means to be connected to alien craft. It's very different than driving an airplane or piloting a helicopter or something.
Let's go to Paul here. Any other SSP survivors gone public that you trust?
Oh, that I trust? Is that a caveat in the question? I see any other SSP
I'm going to caveat that because there is a lot of shysters out there.
Yeah. Yeah. There are people that I trust and whose stories seem to have a lot of coincidence with truth. And yeah, people, I can't speak for them. I don't know. But of course, there's a lot of people more and more that are going public with their stories. And I feel favorably that, such as being on your show, like there's more audiences that are willing to listen to stories about the SSP, as bizarre as they are. I think there's a little opening going on into which or through which more of this is able to be processed and digested by the collective in a way that's favorable. So I think there is a kind of favorable disclosure happening with all of that.
This leads to a question from Truthwave. Have you ever met or recognized someone and they didn't know they were a part of the SSP? I love this question.
What comes to mind, Truthwave, is at first my brother. Like, he's unwilling to speak to the programs, to aliens, and to abduction completely. So I have to say my bro is certainly never going to come, forward with his testimony. But, I recognized him, yes, from the program. So there is that. Other than that, a lot of times in memory recall, people's faces can be quite pixelated. Yeah, so that's I haven't recognized. I've had people say they know me from the programs, but it hasn't necessarily been a two-way street with that.
Have you ever had a private conversation on this realm with people that you served with up there?
Just Dean, my twin, and that was only through psychic means. Remember, we were completely wed, body, mind, and through our psyches, through trauma bonding. And it was a few years back that he came to me psychically and introduced himself. And yeah, that's how I know Dean. But as an adult, he's not doing very well. But I'll leave that there.
Let's go to Ian in the UK. Is this why they find lots of sneakers on the beach? They would be out of fashion after 20 years. I like that. A little bit.
You mean like if you came back and your shoes were like, why the heck am I wearing these old Nikes from the 80s? Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Talk about when they bring you back after 20 years. What happens? You go right back to that 9-year-old kid? Yeah, and your life starts falling apart. That's what happens. That's like the sum total of what happens. You will never be the same. Like I was a mess for many years. That's going to be just putting it bluntly and succinctly and getting right to the point. Man, I don't even know what that would feel like. Yeah. Well, and remember too, like there's so much of your mind has been wiped and yet something isn't right. Like I really started to go downhill after that. I can see in just a few photos that I have of like, I was taken in grade 5 to Mars and then grade 6. It's like, who are you? What happened to you? And from that point on, every year a teacher would come to me and say, is everything okay at home? And I would just be in tears and mute and like really messed up. So it's very destructive to the life you come back to, at least in my experience and others that I've spoken to. Life is not going to be the same. Let's go to Cosmic Joe. What's the future hold for the whole human race?
Cosmic Joe, what would you like it to hold? We're helping manifest our future at the moment. So, that's a big question. It's a bit loaded. It's a heavy question. It's a beautiful question. It holds so much beautiful potential. We are fractals of the cosmos and spiritual beings at the core having these human experiences. So we are creators of this reality in many, many ways, something we don't necessarily believe in or want to look at. So I say this because we are in a position where we are helping decide that future. I could have gone down different rabbit holes and ended up a very different person, addicted to drugs and alcohol and abusing children that I might have had or something of this sort. I didn't go there. And that was through my own choice. So we've got a lot of say in what happens to the future of humanity. We are writing that script right now.
All right, let's continue on here. Let's go over to the Michael Leger. What is the weather like on Mars?
So I remember a lot of wind, like dust storms and wind, like wind, hot sun, bright light, and wind. Kind of boring, I guess, but yeah, that's my recall of it. Yeah, I don't, it's funny. I don't remember a lot of really cloudy days or rainy days. I remember a lot of hot sun, almost like being in a desert. Yeah.
T-Bone is asking, how sentient are their craft?
That's going to depend on whose craft we're talking about. The more advanced the extraterrestrial or versus maybe human craft, German craft, or whatever. Germans were working with ETs back in World War II to create, their technology, their craft. Anyway, it just depends on who did the ships, who owns the ships, who's created the ships. They're very sentient, especially the higher you go dimensionally. They're incredibly, they're like beautiful beings. That's what how could I just describe them.
Let's continue on. Ian in the UK, good morning to you. He wants to know, what did you eat up there?
Yeah. Oh, this takes me back to some memories in the Kuiper Belt with the Draco, where we had holographic food. Not necessarily like human food, although it was like you could have something that was, I don't even know how to describe that. I remember getting holographic burgers up there that had pickle and onion on them, and the pickle and onion would make me oversleep, and I would get in trouble with the Draco because I would eat them on my off shift. And then I would, anyway, it's kind of a funny story, but we had some normal food, human food, and other weird stuff. I don't necessarily, a lot of those memories of like what I was eating, where I was sleeping, I remember a lot more like the Big Bang kind of memories. If you look back at the last 20 years of your life, what do you remember the most? It's probably not what you had for breakfast last week or last month or 10 years ago.
I do. It was pancakes.
It was pancakes.
Yeah. Never for dinner, though, because pancakes are a breakfast meal. I don't do breakfast for dinner. All right, let's go over to Derek. Why were you told you were chosen for these programs?
Was she told why she was chosen for the programs? My higher self has informed me. My oversoul has informed me. And that's enough for me. I have a lot of information, and we've spoken to that here on the show. So, yeah.
Let's go to Creepypasta. How do people get chosen for these programs?
Mm-hmm. And we've spoken a bit to that too. Some of it is in the soul's code, or what we might have agreed to explore before we came in and incarnated in this embodiment as spiritual beings having this human experience. And some of it is our attributes, like we said. Like for me, I had the psychic abilities, and I came from these certain bloodline families who were also involved with the military. So there's at least a partial answer for you.
Blue Cruz would like to know, any experience on the Ceres colony planetoid in the asteroid belt?
I have memories of places that I cannot quite name. And Ceres is a possibility to that, but I can't say for sure. Yeah.
At what point did you feel mentally exhausted by all of this?
That's a great question, Dave. Yeah, mentally exhausted. Um, yeah. I mean, in the programs themselves, I think probably immediately you're so exhausted by what's happening. There's so much trauma, right? Um, yeah. It's sometimes I have moments where I feel like I'm exhausted thinking about my experiences. Yeah, there's those pauses and moments and punctuation in life where I do feel like that. But overall, yeah, depends on you talking about while I was in the programs or later on. There is exhaustion, there is fatigue, there is disgust with this for sure. Yeah.
But let's talk about the now,
Hmm.
where you obviously going through something like this, you must get recall quite often, or at least used to.
I used to, I was having big, when my father was the year before he died and the year after he died were huge memory recall dumps. Like just like a dump truck came to my house and dumped all this stuff out, right? But there's fewer, there was big dumps now, but they're far between. So, and it's not, I think I've had to pause almost, press a pause on the recall so I could metabolize what I've been given thus far, which is a lot of information, tremendous amount of information that I have. But it gets like, oh God, do I want to go through more of this? So it can be like a push pull with memory recall. And I see this also in clients that I work with. I want to know and I don't want to know.
In your clients that you've worked with, have you ever dealt with people from the secret space program who didn't even know?
Yes, absolutely. Hmm.
How often
Yes.
does that happen?
Um, no, with my client practice, I always ask for people, have some intention and say, may I be connected to those people I can truly serve. And I ask that those, if they're going to come to me, let me be of service rather than, I'm getting all this information for somebody that do they really want it? So, it does happen. And people sometimes come to say, I have these anomalous recall. I think I was abducted. I don't really know what happened. And we look into that. We can see what happened to some degree and also why it happened and, get to the foundation of the experiences pretty adeptly.
Let's go to Joe here. Are there people that were in the military program that just don't remember, but they still kick butt in real life and don't know why?
Oh, probably. I'm not the expert on all these things, but yeah, yeah. I mean, you could have a bit. Sometimes there's, I've heard stories of people with abilities that they don't know where they come from, or the capacity to do something very advanced that they've never studied, or know things. Like people who, woke up and they were speaking German. They're not fluent in German. Why is that? Were you in the program? Did you spend 20 years with the Germans? It's possible. So. Things like that do occur.
What do you want people to know?
I think what I've covered so far too is that we're not victims to our experience, and I've said this in different ways on the show that we have a lot of personal volition going on this planet, far more capacity to steer our trajectory individually and collectively than we may realize. We have a lot more personal power in the situation, which we're programmed to believe is a fiction. So I want to leave people with the belief that, or the inspiration that, whatever you're going through in your life, there's a purpose, there's a teaching inside of it. And are you willing to show up and learn what, maybe it's traumatic, maybe it's difficult, maybe it's something that sucks on the surface, but there's always something you can glean from it and, take a deeper meaning into your life. Listen to what the teacher and the teaching is saying, and your life is not necessarily as off the rails maybe as you think. Be open-minded about that and be gentle with yourself.
I want to say a big thank you, Rebecca, for not only allowing my audience to get to know you, but your incredible story and your incredible journey. I would love to bring you back on again to
Mhm.
discuss this because I think we only touched the tip of the iceberg.
It's too
Do
very
me a
true.
fa-
Yeah. Yeah.
do me a favor, please, and let our audience know where they can find more about you.
Yeah, RebeccaRoseBarfoot.com. I don't know if you have that link below at all, Dave. And also, I'm Sirius Blue, Rebecca Rose Sirius Blue on Telegram, on Rumble, and also on YouTube. I just put out a new video about my son. We mentioned briefly, very briefly, the full story on my son Blue, reptilian hybrid from Mars, and a loving reunion with him. The whole story is available on YouTube.
All right. Thank you very much. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, we have Swamp Dweller, an extra small
You're
Lee
listening
Strauss.
to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
I like her. I like her. It was different. It was awesome. And I'll be right back because I have to go stretch for extra small Lee Strauss. Bring in extra small. What do you say, extra small?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm living the dream, bud. Living
All
the
day,
dream.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having fun.
You know what? It's been a great Friday.
It has been.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say a big thank you to B. Arthur, T-Bone, Kitty, Caddywhack, T-Bone again, Mel WD40, Tim, Michael, and Area 53 for the super chats tonight. Greatly appreciate your love and support. Lee looks camouflaged tonight. Don't move, Lee. We don't want to see you. All right, we got 5 seconds. All right, hard to believe we're already in the third hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We greatly appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, I want to remind all of you that you are awesome for tuning us in each and every night. We really enjoy your love and support of the High Strangeness as we say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Waveson. Waveson is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. This story takes place 1 year ago when I lived in the backwoods of Georgia. I now live in Wyoming. It is much better here. My name is Patrick. I'm 17 now, but when this happened, I was 16, and this is hard for me to write because it still scares the crap out of me to this day. So, I and my friends Mark, CJ, and Chelsea were going to spend the night together because my brother was at his friend's house and my mom and dad were going to be out of town for the next week. I must note I was 16. Mark was 15, Chelsea was also 16, and CJ was 17. He had his license, and I believe he was the only one out of the group to have it. Because I was living in the backwoods, CJ drove Mark and Chelsea to my house. The first 3 hours were normal. We watched movies, played some PS4 games, and I browsed Netflix until midnight. It was at that point, for at least an hour, we were browsing the r/paranormal subreddit. Mark is a believer, and so am I. Chelsea is too, but I think CJ was more of a skeptic, but we still liked him as he was cool. He is like a more punk rock version of Tom Cruise, and I say Tom Cruise because he was short, about 5'4". Mark is 5'6", Chelsea is 4'10", and I'm 6'4". I am the tallest. My dad is a Marine. He is a beast at 70, and he is 6'4". I got my height from my dad. Had I not been the tallest and strongest of my friends, I would not be alive today. Here's why. We were sitting there out of nowhere. My dog starts going absolutely nuts. I grabbed my dad's shotgun because my house was on a back road of a back road. The closest other person is probably 5 miles away or more, and my property had no trespassing signs and private property signs all over it. So I looked outside and see nothing. Then I hear a sound that sends chills down my spine even as I write this. I said, "What the heck is that?" CJ comes running outside. I hand him my mom's pistol, and just as we are ready to walk back in the house, I see something run into the woods. Me and CJ run after it, with our guns. We have our flashlights at the ready as well. We run for about 15 minutes. Then CJ goes, "Shh, quiet." Then he points at something. It takes me a minute to see what it is. That's when I see it. I open fire and then CJ starts shooting as well. I stop and tell him to stop soon after. We hear a scream coming from the house. Me and CJ sprint back to the house as we hear that god-awful sound again. CJ and I run into the back door. We find Mark and Chelsea in the corner of the room. Chelsea is hysterical and crying and said, "What was that?" We all had a look of shock on our faces, and then I looked at my dog. Sarah is a 10-year-old black lab. She's the best dog ever. I saw her hiding behind my dad's chair. There were 3 long, deep claw marks along her side. We all spent the rest of the night in my upstairs bedroom with all the doors locked. When the sun came up, we went outside with my dad's shotgun and searched the backyard. I found 2 large footprints where I saw the thing run into the woods. I told CJ and Mark, but not Chelsea. I stayed at CJ's place for the next couple of days. Then Mom and Dad came home after dinner. When I and Dad were talking in the living room, I told him about what happened. He said I probably saw a Wendigo. Mark just told me that he had stage 4 cancer. He only has 6 months, so I figured I would share this story. Chelsea and I have been dating for a while now. Next year we turn 18. I plan on asking her to marry me, and I want a big family and lots of kids, but I can't never forget that night. It will be with me until the day I die.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another spooky story. If you want more just like that, head on over to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, and let us know what you think, as you got thousands of stories right there to choose from. Let's bring in Lee for the Q&A. Extra Small Lee Strauss, good to have you back on the show, my man.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. You know, we had a great day. Got out a little bit early from work. It was awesome. And decent weather, too. They were calling for rain, but it was beautiful.
We missed you in Vegas, man.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be a good time next year, though, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've already planned the weekend, which will be the first weekend in May once again.
Okay.
So make sure you mark that on the calendar. We're going to give our audience a lot of time to kind of build that up as well. So, you know, it was a good time. What did you do while we were gone?
Oh, well, we went into let's see, the North Cascades over by Mount Baker. We went up the Baker River into an area that I've wanted to go into for a long time, called the Sulphide Creek area. And it's pretty spooky back up in there. Pretty darn spooky. It's always felt like I needed to go in there, just another place where I felt like I was called to. We didn't get a lot of activity. In fact, we didn't find anything or any of that, you know, any paranormal type stuff at all. But we went up in there and did some filming and still haven't checked our all of our data yet to figure out if we did capture anything. But we'll get to that eventually.
I think that's a good topic to kind of hit on right off the bat here. Because when you're called to a location, it is unsettling at times. You don't know why you're supposed to go there, but you get these visions that if you do go there, things are going to happen. And a lot of times you end up going there and nothing happens at all. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, wow, this was a waste of time, or why was I shown that? For you, when you are visualizing a location and that location will not leave your head, what does that mean to you?
Well, often, Dave, when I get a location, either I'm looking at Google Earth and I get a weird sensation about a spot, or like most recently, it's been Diablo Lake. It's okay. So I've got this location in my head. Then I need to do the research on the location and figure out what is it that's calling me there. So I'll look up anything to do with Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or I'll look into UFO sightings and that sort of thing. And when I'm talking about Diablo Lake, which is also connected to Ross Lake that ends up in Canada, it turns out there's quite a bit of phenomena down there as well. So, or over there. But it's triggering to me. It's like, okay, so I need to go to this spot. I don't really know why, but I need to go there. It's a calling, like we've talked about many other times. You don't know why, but once you start doing the research, you kind of find out why, which it seems kind of backwards. Usually you want to do your research on an area first, right, before you go. But for me, it's always been backwards.
See, for me, and maybe I'm doing this wrong, I don't know, but I think everybody has their way of doing things. I like your approach, but when I go into an area, I don't research it. I just want to know why I was called there.
Yeah.
And there are certain mountains around here where I've been called to. I know that there's one area that I felt that I needed to go, and I just didn't feel comfortable going there because I know there's dogmen in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave doesn't want to do dogmen, no offense.
No, I agree with you 100%. Don't want anything to do with it.
So I guess you kind of have to be a little bit of a kindred spirit with it, but I also know you personally and your quest for knowledge. And for you, you want to be an encyclopedia before you go into that area, so that way you kind of know what you're looking for at what time, when things happen. Is it up in the sky? Is it on the ground? Do I need to be looking in the trees? I mean, it is a little bit different.
It is, because I carry such a large amount of equipment, right? I want to know what I'm going to be looking for. What do I need to bring? Do I need to bring my big parabolic dish? Do I need to bring, night vision? What do I need? What, what's out there, right? And sometimes, like in this location at Ross Lake, there's both phenomena going on, with Bigfoot and UFOs. So I just try to pick the best type of equipment for the location. And if you look on a map, the map's going to tell you, Google Earth's going to tell you what you're going to be dealing with when you go into a location, because in this situation, I'm way up high. I'm going to be, about 1,000 feet above the lake, above Diablo Lake. And going to have my cameras trained pretty much on the sky, but my parabolic mic, I can, swivel it and point it down towards like the tree line and that sort of thing. Hopefully capture some vocalizations, maybe, if there's things going on down there. So we're going to be looking for two different phenomena at the same time, but I just try to narrow things down the best I can.
How do you prepare for two different phenomena at once?
Well, it's a lot of prep work. I mean, the things that you got to do before you leave. I mean, all the batteries need to get charged, making sure that your SD cards, your micro SD cards are all cleared off and everything is set to go. Everything is working in the equipment. And even when you get out in the field, things don't always work when you're out there. So, I mean, that just happens. It just happens. It's part of the phenomena, as you well know. Things don't work like they work back at the house when you get them out in the field. It just doesn't happen. So having backup equipment, and I load up my Forerunner with all just everything that I, can, and then it's unpacking everything and it's hooking everything up, making sure that I got satellite connectivity, because I will be going live next Saturday night with that. With whatever's phenomena is out there, or no phenomena, but I will be going live when we are there. And it's a lot of work, Dave. It's a lot of work, as you well know, to gather up the people, because I'll bring 2 other people with me to make sure that they've got time off to do it as well. So there's a lot of preparation involved. I'll probably spend all next week getting ready.
I know what that's like. I know what that's like. I'm already, going through my brain and my list of everything that I need to bring. And I could tell you, I just picked up a wicked set of Bushnell binoculars from the local sports store here, and man, I am, I needed a good pair. I made sure for the first time I went and got a tape measure because you might want a tape measure if you find footprints, or at least one footprint to measure it, rather than doing that. Well, I have a size 9 shoe, and I'm going to put that there, and that looks like a size 28. You know what I'm saying? You just don't want to do that. You want to try and be accurate as you possibly can. For you, when you are out in the field, how much, I know you're a techie guy. You're a very techie guy. How much, though, are you using your own instinct and intuition?
Well, my own instinct and intuition get me there, first of all, right? So when you get to a location, and I'm sure you do this the same thing, is you just feel, you sit and be for a moment. And where should you set up your camera? What part of the sky do I need to look at? Where do I need to point my parabolic dish? Those sorts of things. It's all on intuition, right? I haven't set up anything looking in several different directions at one time. Usually I want to set up my equipment so it's looking in the same direction. And I've always been that way. I don't know why, but that's just been my process. Okay. And a lot of the time, Dave, as you well know, I capture stuff, right? And I don't know if I'm being told that that's where I need to set up my equipment, or for some reason I'm just lucky. But that's what happens. This location at Diablo Lake, there's a phenomena there called the Diablo Lake lights. And this is new to me. I've been going over the North Cascades Highway ever since I was a little kid. I've never heard about this phenomena. But apparently, so many people have been seeing it over the last 100 years. And not only that, but even the Nooksack Native Americans have talked about the lights in this area as well. So there's a real phenomena there that might not just be UFOs or Sasquatch. There could be something entirely different that I have not encountered. So I am very excited to go there to see what we get. And that, now let me explain what Diablo Lake is like. It's a long lake. It's got a dam. There's a Diablo Lake Dam, and that's basically what's created the lake. There's some campgrounds around the lake and whatnot. And right up on the back side of the lake, there's another dam, and that's called the Ross Lake Dam. And the Ross Lake is very long. It runs up North Cascades and then goes right into Canada. And so a lot of people hike around there, and there's a lot of Bigfoot encounters around the lake, around Ross Lake, and also at Diablo Lake. But this is going to be good. This is going to be really good. Let me tell you what I found today about it. There was a sighting. The guy reported the sighting like last week of a UFO.
Really?
Yes. And let me tell you about the sighting that he caught, or they had on Diablo Lake. So he was in a boat, and he said 200-foot wide craft about 500 feet away from him came over the water, and it had these big glowing balls around the exterior like orbs. He said they were changing multiple colors, like a rainbow type effect to it. And he was watching it for about 10 seconds. And he said it looked old. It was a pewter gray color. And the darn thing shot off towards Canada, went up the lake and out over Ross Lake and right up into Canada. He said in a blink of an eye, it just shot out of there. No sound whatsoever, just boom, gone. So the fact that all of this stuff is coming together right now for me tells me that I'm in for it. Yep.
I love it. I love it. Did he say what shape that craft was?
He said it was round, and the orbs that were attached to the darn thing were round too. He made it, the way I read the report, Dave, is it sounded like some of these orbs were not attached to the craft and some were attached to the craft, but they were about the same general size. So that makes me wonder, are these orbs that are attached to the craft able to disengage from the craft as well? It's interesting. Anyway,
that is an interesting point, because it's almost like they, when you have these disembodied, orbs that seem to be following a craft, they seem to be able to push themselves right back in, almost to be molded right back into the craft, like they're part of the skin.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. We don't understand the technology, of course, but it's a fascinating phenomenon. And if we capture anything out there, we're going to be so happy. Amazingly happy. Not only that, it'll be live. So there you go. And Dave, now we have got Saturday night and Sunday night. So we're going to do it 2 nights, which is awesome. We're going to be up there for 2 nights. And that's at the Diablo Lake Overlook.
T-Bone is asking, does what is underground disturb you?
No. I've seen craft going into and out of mountains in different locations. It seems like they can, just, I don't know, it's not magic, but, if they're able to pull you through a wall and take you in the middle of the night, I'm sure their craft can go right into a solid object as well. So, I mean, what is that technology? I don't know. What does it frighten me? I suppose so. I suppose it does, because what if you're just out there, viewing the night sky or viewing whatever, and all of a sudden something happens right near you like that, like something comes up out of the ground. Well, that's going to startle you. It's going to frighten you. You don't know what to think about that object or what to do in that situation. Nobody has any idea what you would do in that sort of a situation. Run and jump in your vehicle and haul butt out of there. I don't know. Grab your gun or your pointy stick. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. When we look at it from our perspective, I mean, we also have the issue of having to deal with a lot of wild animals, and I know you do too in that area, but we got a few more that you don't, like wolf packs, moose, and grizzly bears. How do you prepare for the elements when you can't control your environment?
It's just like when you bring equipment with you. You've got to have everything to protect yourself, right? You try to look in your environment when you get there, and look for prints, look for anything. The last trip we did find some bear scat and a couple bear footprints, so we were kind of concerned about that. So last time we kept a fire going all night long, because just to keep anything away from where we were. In this location, we're not going to be in an area where we're going to be directly.
Hold that thought, Lee. Hold that thought. Extra small Lee Strauss. We continue on with him right after this.
This is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott.
Good job, little Lee Strauss.
Thank you.
Susan wants to know why I call you extra small. I don't know. There is no reason. And that's the honest truth. There is no reason. I just felt he needed a nickname, and so that was it. It started out with Lee, who literally gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning, like 6 days a week, to go to the gym to work out.
No, not so much anymore. I'm getting moved around now, so I can't go to the same gym. So once I get a permanent,
did you get banned?
no, I wasn't banned. I moved from one job. Now I'm at another job, and so I need to find a new place to get up 2:45 in the morning and go to. So
I don't know how you do it, brother.
Well, I sometimes I don't know how I do it, Dave. It's just you got to want it. I guess, you got to want it bad enough.
I had some exciting news today.
Do tell.
And I'm going to give credit to Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Put my name in. I got a call from a television producer from History Channel.
Ooh.
And apparently, after our phone conversation, she was like, what have you experienced? I said, what do you want? I said, you want aliens? Do you want UFOs? Do you want Bigfoot? Do you want ghosts? She was, tell me some alien stories. So I told her about the story with Samantha and I. And then I told her about what happened out here the last couple of years. And she goes, do you have names for people who would be there? Yeah. I said, my team will talk. I said, in fact, once we're done with this, do I have something for you? I said, I am literally sitting on potentially Canada's Skinwalker Ranch.
There you go.
And I said, I have the team. We have the video. We definitely have the location. And I'm not telling you where it is.
Nice.
Till we talk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're having a Zoom call on Monday.
That's cool. That's cool. That's a good deal.
Yeah. So
we're going to be seeing old Dave on TV.
Oh, God, that's an ugly thought, isn't it?
Oh, no. Oh, no. In all your glory. Not just from here up. It's going to be all of your glory.
Yeah, yeah. All of my glory takes up half the camera. Dude, you know what? You know the saying that a camera adds 10 pounds to you?
Oh, yeah.
With me, it's like 50 pounds. It's disgusting.
Well, it's either the camera adds 50 pounds to you or you are adding pounds to the camera.
Oh, you know what? You're the ever consummate man of positivity.
I don't know. I'm just saying things right now.
Yeah. Just to quickly let our audience know that when we're done with Lee tonight, I do have to go meet up with Merle because Merle is in town at the Heritage Site. And so I'm going to be ending this a little bit early. And yeah, I'll be editing this show probably in the next day or two. So I would appreciate, if you don't mind, if you guys don't mind if we kind of skip on out early, that would be great. We got about 35 seconds.
I've got some more stuff. I've got some more news too, but we'll wait until we get back on.
All right. Big thank you tonight to Kitty Cattywhack, T-Bone times 2, Tim, Mel WD40, Area 53, B. Arthur, and Michael. Thank you for the loveliness here. There will be a show on Monday. Yes, it's a holiday here in Canada, but there will be a show. Don't worry about that. We got you covered. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's the Q&A with Extra Small Lee Strauss as we break down the news of the week that's really kind of grinding his gears. Lee, what do you got for us tonight?
Well, let's finish with how I protect myself out there. You know, I was telling you that we came across some bear prints and some bear scat and that sort of thing. And we have a fire going all night long around us. Also, you know, we tend to make a lot of noise too when we're out there. You know, it might attract Bigfoot if we're out there having a good time, laughing and all that sort of stuff seems to help as well. So we're making, you know, noise and letting everything in the vicinity know that we're there. But we also carry, at least two of us carry pointy sticks with us when we go out. Generally speaking, and we've done this in the past where, you know, we might have two of us asleep while one person stays awake or vice versa. It just depends. But that's how we're keeping ourselves, you know, safe and alert as the best that we can. However, now tomorrow I'm going to be going out alone. And then the reason I'm doing that is because my friends aren't available. It's going to rain where we're at, but I am going out alone. And I'm going to a place called Wellington. And that is on Stevens Pass. It's an old town that's no longer there. In fact, a massive avalanche back in 1910 just about destroyed the whole town and pushed a train into a ravine back then. And it still is the largest avalanche in U.S. history, and the largest amount of people died during the avalanche. I should say it that way. But 96 people died. There was two train cars full of people plus a mail train that were pushed down into the gully and covered up by all this snow. And it took them weeks and weeks to pull all the bodies and as much wreckage as they could out of this area. Now, I went there last year with my two friends and I set up some trail cameras, and I'm going back tomorrow to retrieve the trail cameras. So I almost have a full year of those trail cameras sitting down there recording anything that moves. So that'll be interesting.
You think the batteries are still good in them?
Well, by now, probably not. But, you know, they say they last like 8-9 months. So normal use. But it is a haunted location, Dave. You know, the batteries could have been zapped the day after I left them down there. So who knows? But I'm very interested.
Do you remember where you put them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've got them tagged where they're at.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
The locations that you use, are they pretty open or are they very enclosed?
Where I put them, they're pretty well, not so much open, but you could see for a good distance in the trees from where I put them. I try to put them up to where maybe there's a game trail nearby, or there seems to be some sort of animal activity. And they're going to be near the creek. So yeah, hopefully there is a lot of data to sift through.
I hope you get something.
I think I will.
I really do hope you get something. That would be awesome.
Yeah. It would be neat too if there was paranormal activity, besides just Sasquatch, possibly would be great, but some sort of paranormal activity. People have seen orbs and light shafts and that sort of thing on trail cameras. So I'm hoping something similar to that would be good. But when we were there setting everything up, all three of us got touched. We asked to be touched, and all three of us got touched. And I was standing out on a log by myself, a log that goes over the river, and down, I was had my phone camera down towards the log, and I was filming this mushroom that was just out in the middle of this log, like somebody had laid it there. And there was this little orb that went through the screen. So there's obvious activity in that area.
Man, I'm kind of jealous. I may want to go.
Well, you can go into your own spot tomorrow. So are you guys expecting rain?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So that is, it's going to be fun. It's going to be real fun. So the big thing for Tim and myself is safety.
Yeah.
First and foremost. And you can plan for, and I'm sure you would agree with this, you can plan for any type of investigation that you are going to be doing. But in the end, all of that is null and void if you're not prepared for safety.
Right. You can't protect yourself from every eventuality. You just can't do it. So it seems to me like you try the best you can with the knowledge that you have. And whatever comes out of that, when you're out there in the woods doing your thing, you just have to roll with it. Whatever it is, I'll be taking a pointy stick with me, of course, going by myself, but the trail to get to this location is a known trail. So there should be other people on the main trail. But once I get off the trail and head down the ravine and across the way over to where I put up these trail cameras, who knows? Right. And most of the time, Dave, and you know this as well, is that people are the biggest threat to us in these situations. So that's always a thought. And when you're out there, trust your gut. Your gut will not steer you wrong. It's the times that you do not pay attention to your gut, that's what gets you in trouble.
And one of those realities is if your gut is telling you it's time to leave, leave. Because that one more minute, that one more second where I feel something's going to happen, that's where danger happens. Because you may be expecting Sasquatch, and all of a sudden Mother Black Bear comes out with her cubs and is really angry and ornery that you are around.
Yep. It's that same sort of feeling that you get when you're driving down the road and you know someone's looking at you and you turn and they are. It's that gut instinct. You're going to feel it. You're going to know it and pay attention to it and listen. Whatever it needs to happen, whatever it's telling you, do it.
I agree.
Yep.
I totally agree. And I think like with Tim and I, we will have pointy sticks with us. We will have cameras with us. We will have trail cams with us. We'll have a little bit of everything in order to get ready to go. But, like one of the safety features I have, because my vehicle will be close, I always have my windows down, and I've always had my keys because I don't have like my vehicle, my Jeep still has a key. A lot of vehicles don't have keys; they're push button now,
Yeah.
right? But my thing is, my keys are always in the ignition, just pulled out enough where they're not going to stop the bing, or the words you're not going to get the bing, 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 bing. Okay, but they are right there, so you're not fondling with keys, And if you got to hop in that vehicle and split ASAP and leave everything there, it's I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that goes for, that idea of an escape route is huge as well. I mean, if you think about that going into an area, okay, what's my escape route? Do I have an escape route? What's the best way for me, to grab what I gotta get and then have a way out if something happens here or there. Having that constant thought in your head about what is my escape route right now, that's a good thing to have. I think about what would I deal with myself. Let's say I parked in a parking lot in the woods somewhere off the side of the road or whatever, and then a bear does come at me. What do I do? And the first thing I'm thinking of, well, I'd get up on the top of my vehicle. That's where I would go. I mean, I know that that's probably a safe-ish sort of place to go until I can get my pointy stick out and take a good aim at whatever it is that's coming at me. If there's a tree nearby where you're camping that that you can climb up and get up high up into a tree, yeah, that's a good idea, Dave, is to camp in a location where you can get up into a tree if you need to get up into a tree. I've heard plenty of stories where a bear will try to come up after somebody that's in a tree and doesn't get very far and then comes down. It's always good to have your phone on you, on your person, not in your backpack, so that if your backpack's on the ground, you still have your phone on your person. If you have to leave it, you can, when you're running away from a bear, you can drop your backpack. You know what I mean? Drop it on the ground and the bear might go for that. It might, deter them or, that sort of thing, so that you have time. This precious seconds mean a lot. So, just think about those sorts of things. One of the other things too that you can do, and I've heard this before, is where people will grab their backpack and then make themselves look taller by pushing it up above their head, behind them, to make themselves look bigger. So that's another thing that people say as well as just keep making noise.
Make noise.
Mm-hmm.
Bears don't like noise. Doesn't matter whether it's grizzly bear or black bear. They
Right.
don't like noise.
Nope.
They want shrieking. They want yelling. They want absolutely everything. But they don't like noise.
Nope.
That is for sure. What do you think of what's going on in the UFO world right now?
Oh my gosh. Well,
what's really grinding your gears right now?
Well, there's some things coming out, and it sounds like all of this stuff is getting postponed right now until possibly next year, end of the year, next year. Why did they push it so far away? Is that because they've got so many more credible people that are coming out right now talking about it? It seems to me like we talked last week that there's more and more people coming forward, which is a good thing. But also, if there's a hidden agenda to keep it silent, they don't want all those people coming out right now. And it seems like they just want to keep it below the surface, let little things come out, not this big tidal wave of information that seems to be coming out every week now on YouTube. And so, yeah, I think it's time for them to put the brakes on, and that's what they're doing. They want to be able to get ahead of it. They want to be able to tell people, shut your mouth. We don't want to talk about this. There's too much money in play. Just like anything else, there's too much at stake, Dave. There really is. They don't want us knowing about the technology. They don't want us knowing. They want complete control over it. That's what it seems like.
I tend to believe, and it's just me, just a gut feeling I have. I think that the Congress people are done with the charades and the games of David Grush not showing up and then showing up for a secret skiff. Done with Lou Elizondo's fake photos.
Yeah.
And then going back to the last hearing where it was a buy my book hearing.
Yeah.
And once again, I don't say that to be insultive to Elizondo or Grush, but these are the facts that have happened. And it makes me wonder if they say to themselves, why are we doing this? Why are we wasting our time if these so-called whistleblowers, these so-called insiders, are wasting our time? Why are we wasting the public's time? Taxpayer dollars. Why is that going on? Because remember, it's not just when you do a congressional hearing, there are people that are there that are getting paid. Not only the Congress people, but you have your recorders, you have your security, you have, your assistants, you have your people who are providing information, your closest aide. You have a number of people. So for one person, there's probably 5 other people that are there with them. And you have to be able to take care of those people. Those people are getting paid. What are they researching if there is no reality or proper conversation about this? And I think that's what's happening here. I could be wrong, but I got a gut feeling on it, and my gut feelings are usually pretty good, Lee.
Well, it makes sense to me, Dave, what you say, what you lay out there. However, I'm a little bit more cynical about it, I think, right now. It just seems like we're constantly hitting this dead end, and it doesn't seem to really move the block very far forward. Every time there's, something like this, they give us a little bit more tidbit, and then, they stop talking about it, and you'll find out something in 6 months later, another little tidbit, and they never just come out full throttle and tell us what's going on. And I don't think they're ever going to tell us what's really going on. It's going to be their version of what they want us to hear, not the real thing. They've got the narrative and we don't. They've got, the what do they call that? The right to know, and we do not.
Yeah, but it's all for transparency. You know what I'm saying? It's all for transparency. It's never for the public. They say it's for the public, but how often is that true?
It's only for the public if it suits them. If they can get more money in their coffers to defend us against these UFOs, well, that would make sense to me. Oh, let's do that. Let's give more money to the Defense Department because, these aliens and these UFOs are a threat, which is asinine because they've been here for thousands of years and they're not attacking us. If anything, they want us not to have nuclear weapons and aim them at each other. So, they're not a threat. But if it makes the government have more money in their coffers for defense and that sort of thing, then, that's what they're going to tell us.
I would agree with you. So we got about just under 3 minutes to go here, Lee, on the show. I mean, what is your thoughts of the term whistleblower? We had another whistleblower come out named Matthew Brown. He came out with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. And what we are seeing now is many people who are saying, this guy could be the next one, the next Jake Barber, the next David Grush with his type of information. I'm still thinking back a few weeks ago when we had John Ramirez and Walter Bosley back-to-back on the show, where basically they were like, these aren't whistleblowers. These are experiencers. These are eyewitnesses. But they haven't done anything. They haven't gone against the DOPSR. They haven't gone against their NDA to say anything regarding anything that would get him in trouble. What's your thoughts?
Well, this guy came out and said quite a bit of stuff. I did watch all 3 parts of that interview that he did on YouTube, and I just thought it was amazing what he was saying, and the fact that, they're able to manipulate time, or we may even be able to manipulate time in some way now as well. And it's just, to me, it just blows my mind. He says, if you knew exactly what was coming across his desk, I mean, everything that comes across his desk, we wouldn't believe our own eyes. And I agree with him. I think we are kept in the dark like mushrooms, right? And that the theory that, now he's saying there is a God. That was the last thing he said, is there is a God, which, if he says it, he's saying it, well, I would tend to believe there's some sort of a God out there. It's just he said it was our reality is a fabrication too, which was really interesting as well. So yeah, man, there was just so much he was laying on the line. He would be a great person to get, in front of Congress. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would like to see it. I would like to see more of him. Question is he going to be held back like the rest of them? I think that's for me, that is the big question.
I think that'll happen. I think they'll get a hold of him too, now that he's let himself out there in the public eye.
Well, it's sad if they do, because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered for these people. And I hope he does. I hope he realizes that. Lee, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio for the Q&A. As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar, God himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Good job, Extra Small.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
That's why you're a hero. That's why you're a hero. That's why people like you. This is why you cannot walk a place in the Pacific Northwest without signing an autograph right there.
They come at me in droves, I will say. Nah, no, I haven't. No, I think there was one time I did sign one autograph. Yeah, once.
To who? To who?
My mom.
And here I thought it would be somebody confusing you for Les Stroud.
Yeah, no kidding. That's happened plenty of times. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. That's all old Michael Hall's fault anyway.
Right?
Absolutely.
God bless him.
Yep. What about Small Dangers Strauss? They're trying to come up with other nicknames for me.
Do it. Hey, if you get a good one, we'll put it on a t-shirt.
There you go. Come up with a good one. Anyway, I've got to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and head into the mountains. So I'm going to catch you later.
Yeah, I got to go meet Merle. Anyways, thank you, buddy. And to the rest of you out there in YouTube land, big thank you to B. Arthur, Tim, Tim Senor, T-Bone ×2, Michael, Kitty Cattywhack, Mel WD40, and Area 53. We're going to cut this short tonight, but don't forget this weekend, Sweets is back in the hot seat Saturday and Sunday night. I will be back on Monday, where my guest will be, who is it? Olaf Phillips. We're going to talk about the dark side of ufology when he gets here. See you later, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.